Hello, my name is Gavin. On behalf of Gate English Training School, we're here to start Speaking 9 lesson for our IELTS course. Today's topic is a mix of different common grammar structures. So today's lesson is going to be fairly repetitive. We're going to look at lots of different questions. I'm going to teach you some standard structures for answering the questions, and then you can practice and compare your answer to mine. Okay, for this one, again, make sure you have a tape recorder or an app on your phone to record your voice so you can record your answers and compare them to mine. So, first grammar structure, the agree question. Again, well, not again, first one today. The agree structure is basically commonly used in part 1 and part 3, actually. So, would you agree that students should learn to cook? So, of course, would you agree? Yes or no? No, I wouldn't agree that students should learn to cook in high school because I think they need to learn about more useful skills for their future job, such as doing maths and writing reports. No, I wouldn't. Yes, I would agree that summer is the best time of the year because I love going in the sea in hot weather and swimming at the beach. Okay, so no, I wouldn't. Yes, I would. There is a third possible kind of answer for this question, however. Maybe you kind of agree and you kind of disagree. Okay, so this is where you might use the phrase, well, to a certain extent. If you're not familiar with that phrase, a certain extent means a certain level. If this is 100%, this is 0%, we're talking that you're somewhere along there. Okay, so up until a certain point, you would agree, but once it goes too far, you probably start to disagree. So, would you agree that watching TV can lead to violent behavior? It's actually like the question we looked at last lesson, I believe. Well, to a certain extent, I agree that watching violent films can lead to violent behavior. However, we need to consider many other different factors, particularly the parents of children, because as I actually mentioned in our last video, good parenting can stop children learning to be violent after watching TV and violent films. But children that are left in front of the films with no parents guiding them might copy that behavior. Okay, so remember that, because we're going to go to the next slide. You won't be able to look at this. So, well, this is a pretty easy one. I think the first two you don't need much help with. The third one, well, to a certain extent, I agree that this thing does this. However, okay, let's move on. Try to remember that. I'm sure you've taken notes if you're not sure. So, tape recorder out and practice your answer, then listen to mine. Would you agree that education is more important than experience? Personally, I don't agree that education is more important than experience. And while both are very important, I think actually experience is a better teacher than education. There might be some subjects, maybe like science and engineering, where you can learn so much from books, but for most subjects, you learn more when you go out and get a job in a company. Whether you're a teacher, definitely experience is a much better teacher than learning from books. Whether you are working in fashion design, going and working with fashion designers, if you're working in an IT company, learning how to go into a company, so we're going to make this software. You know, the more you practice, the better you're going to get. So books don't teach us anywhere near as much as experience. Would you agree that children should spend more time outdoors? Oh, yes, I definitely agree that children should spend more time outdoors because these days they spend too much time inside playing video games or chatting on their phone. And there's a number of problems with that. It can be bad for their health in terms of getting fat from not doing enough exercise. Not having enough sunlight is bad for your eyes, it's bad for your skin. And generally, it means that you're not out there trying to experience the real world. Um, Remember, my answers, by the way, are sometimes quite long, just because I can talk a lot. So you don't always have to be as long as me. Part of what I'm saying is not just to give you a sample answer, but to give you some ideas on some different questions as well. So I'm sorry if sometimes my answers go a little bit longer than you could probably go anywhere near in the IELTS test. Okay, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking too quickly. But again, if you're looking to get 6, 6.5, or 7 in the IELTS test, you need to practice your listening as well. So me speaking too slowly would actually not help you out for that area. Would you agree that more effort should be spent on helping poor people? Yes, I think we should spend more effort on helping poor people. And I don't mean by just giving them money, but in terms of giving them a safe place to live and some training and education so that they could get better jobs and stop being poor at one time in the future. So, the next one I want to talk to you about is the how often question. When asked this question, many people use the wrong answer. They don't understand the question. In fact, it's not just when people speak, but I've actually found many books have the wrong answer in the book. They don't teach this question properly. This is what most people say. How often do you do this? I sometimes do this thing. So what they might say is, I sometimes go to the park. Have a think about that. How often do you go to the park? Sometimes. What is sometimes? Every day? No, once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, once a month. It's not actually answering the question. We need to give more information to specifically tell how often we do it, and then we add the details. So, the basic things to say to answer the how often question are these. Okay, I go to the park once a day or every day. I go to the park twice a week, twice a month. I get my hair cut 3 times a year. In fact, I need a haircut soon. Maybe when you see my next video, I will have a haircut by then. Um, um, 4 times a day. So, other one, every. So I go to the movies once every 2 months or twice every 3 months. I visit my mum 4 times every year. So you can throw that in there as well. Or every 2 years. No, not that bad. So if you haven't written that down by now, have a go again. Once a day, once a week, once a month, twice a day, twice a week, twice a month, 3 times a day, 3 times every month, 3 times every day, 4 times every year, 3 times every 3 weeks. Actually, that would be once a week. Twice every 4 days. Stuff like that. Okay, so hopefully you've got that written down or you can remember that. So let's have a look at an example answer. How often do you go to the supermarket? I go to the supermarket once or twice a week. Most of the time I go on Thursday afternoon for a big shop because I'm not usually busy and can finish work early. I might add more information. I could say, and then maybe one other time in the week I will buy the small things I need. Okay, so the basic answer is once or twice a week. Doesn't have to be specific, once or twice. That kind of language is common because it's not always the same. Okay, time for you guys to practice. So, first question, how often do you ride a bicycle? Actually, I almost never ride a bicycle because I don't really like riding a bike. I feel my knees don't feel very comfortable. But I guess I probably ride a bike once every 2 or 3 years. So it's okay to say that. If you never do it, that's the one time you can say that. I never do this thing. You can actually use that. Sometimes, often, always, rarely. Those ones aren't quite right. But never is actually an answer to the question. You might say, these days I never do it, but before I used to do it once a week or twice a week. Okay. How often do you eat spicy food? Well, just a side note, spicy as in, it burns in your mouth, not like it's hot. So often people say, oh, I like to eat hot food. But hot can have two meanings. Hot as in, it's hot to touch. Or hot as in, it's like using the red pepper, the chili peppers. If you're from Sichuan in China, you know that kind of food is very, very spicy. But how often do you eat spicy food? I probably eat spicy food once or twice a week. Usually I like to have some jalapenos. It's like the green pepper from Mexico in my spaghetti or in my pasta, or I'll even just put them on a sandwich sometimes. So once or twice a week, and then I explain. Oh, by the way, these questions, if you're not sure, are they going to be in part 1 or part 3? That's right, part 1. These questions you will not see how often in part 3. Actually, if you get asked this question in part 3, it's because you're not doing very well and they're asking you easy questions. They can do that in part 3. If somebody's not doing very well, they might make the questions easier for them. But that's not going to get you high scores. That's you getting like 4.5 and 5 level scores. How often do you travel abroad? I usually travel abroad twice a year. One time I'll go to visit China and go back to my school and visit all my friends there. But usually one other time a year I will have a holiday somewhere. For example, this year my wife and I, we went to Vietnam, and last year we went to the Philippines for our holiday. How often do you get a haircut? I get a haircut maybe 3 or 4 times a year, probably about every 2 or 3 months, depending on how busy I am. Okay, we talked about this question a couple of times. You've seen it a few times as well, so let's practice. When was the last time you went shopping? Not very much to explain here. Pretty simple structure. The last time I went to the supermarket was 2 days ago when I did my weekly grocery shopping. So a few things to look at there. The last time. The last time the last time I did this thing was. Okay, so remember we got when was this thing was this time. Okay, so the last time I went to the supermarket was 2 days ago. Now, that's the basic answer. You could stop there, but remember, we want the basic answer plus the extra information. So 2 days ago, when I did my weekly grocery shopping. So this when is not about the time, but about explaining the situation. Okay, so this is a pretty easy grammar structure. But a lot of times when you hear it the first time, people don't know how to answer it. But it's actually a very common question in the IELTS test.